Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo.
And with the 28th pick in the draft, the Bills are trading back. And with the 32nd pick in the draft, the Bills are trading back. Good news is, the Bills eventually did pick. The better news is, you are watching and/or listening to the Mafia Minute presented by Season Gap Fantasy Football. I'm Magnum Bills, here with Jamie G, a card-carrying member of the Bills Mafia. We're here to break down the draft, any recent Bills news, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for checking us out. The Mafia Minute is presented by Season Gap Fantasy Football. You can find us wherever you get your pods and on YouTube, on social media at Season Gap FF. Find us on the web at mafiaminute.com. Simple, nice and easy to remember, just like the flaps. Follow, like, and please subscribe. It's the only thing we ask. If you had fun, please hit the thumb. Jamie G, the draft is in the books. How you doing, man? There were a couple trade backs. You didn't even make a pick in the first round. My text message chains were blowing up a little bit, but I think we made it through okay. How did you do?
I did. You know what, Mills? I'm happy with this draft. I really am. I mean, I didn't allow myself to have these crazy notions that the Bills were going to trade up to the top 10 and get Rome Odunze or what. Like, it was never going to happen. They couldn't. It wasn't even around the possibility. I think they played it exactly the way I would have. Brian Thompson Jr. going off the board to Jacksonville kind of made them say, hey, we don't really have anybody else here at the position we value as a first-round grade. We'll trade back. And I think it was really important to them to get that third-round pick. They got done dirty on the Tremaine Edmonds compensatory pick. Yeah, I'm going to say it. They got done dirty. They got that back, though, and I think that was really important for them, moving back just 4 spots. And then again, by moving back 1 spot, I think they increased their draft position by like 59 total spots. So I'm cool with it. I'm curious to see why. I thought maybe they trade up, maybe try to get a Chop Robinson or something. But I think it's clear that the values that they had were guys that were already gone. And I think the best thing for them that they felt sticking true to their board was to move back. And I'm okay with how it worked out. And I actually think we got a lot of good, talented players that could make immediate impacts down the road. And they needed to do that. They needed to draft well. We need these guys to pan out. And we needed the picks. So I'm okay with it. And not only that, Mills, we managed to get, we already got the second next year from Minnesota. We managed to pick up 2 fourths and another 6, improving the draft position for next season as well, giving them ammunition to do something if they so choose. Plus, there'll probably be a compensatory pick for Leonard Floyd, maybe another one in there as well. So for Gabe Davis. So excited about that. I think all in all, I give the Bills, I think they did really well. We'll get to a grading later.
Fair enough. Like to hear it. And before we get into the draft, maybe a little Bills on parade here. Any non-draft news? I think the main thing here is that the Bills are picking up the 5th-year option for Greg Rousseau. But I'd say that's pretty much hashtag as expected, right? At this point, I would have been shocked if they didn't pick it up.
Absolutely. I mean, Brandon Beebe was asked this past offseason before the wave of veterans leaving and then managing the salary cap, basically started March 6th in terms of that. Before that, he was asked, and his quote was, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Gregory Rousseau has been better every year. I really like him in that rotation. I think this makes a ton of sense to do.
And to be honest with you, that's not how the Bills have been doing it, right? It's been a slow developmental process for some of these guys on the D-line, whether it be Ed Oliver, AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau. They haven't all been year 1 wins, but eventually they're getting there, and that's really what matters, right? Is that you eventually get there. That's the whole Julio thing, right? We'll see you when you get there. And we're going to see you with our draft prediction contest results, because we did the draft prediction contest. Now we have to show you the results. And Jamie G, I'm going to go through these real quick. The first question was, how many draft picks will the Bills end up making? You said 7. I said 8. The correct answer was 10, so no points for us. Next question was, will the Bills trade away any top 100 draft picks from their 2025 arsenal? We both said yes, anticipating a move up. They did not trade any of those picks away. They're currently picking 28th in round 1 as we did it. We asked, would they stay, move up, move down? We both said move up, and the correct answer was move down. So we are severely lacking in points thus far. Next question was, what position will the first player drafted by the Bills play? You said wide receiver. I said defensive lineman. Bully for you. You're on the board with a point there. Next question was, will the Bills trade away any player currently on their roster during the draft? We both said no. That was correct. And follow-up question was, will the Bills trade for a current NFL player under contract during the draft? We both said no. That was correct. Next question, in what round will the Bills draft their first wide receiver? Jamie G, you went round 1. I went round 2. I got it by a thin thread of electric current there, by the hair Uncle June runs New Jersey by. I got there. All that matters, I get the point. You didn't. Next question, in what round will the Bills draft their first offensive lineman? We both said 5th. We got it right. That's I don't know, I'd like to say fairly random, but I would just more say bully for us.
Yeah.
Next question, in what round will the Bills draft their first defensive lineman / pass rusher? You said 2nd. I said 1st. I guess you could call it 3rd, maybe, even if it's not maybe necessarily the edge we were looking for, but obviously not the 1st or the 2nd. And we had, will the Bills draft more defensive players, offensive players, or a tie? We both went defense. Jamie G was a tie. Gonna tie us up
Of
with
course
those
it was.
ties. And then we have how many wide receivers will the Bills draft? We both felt confident. Bills are gonna draft 2 wide receivers. No dose, Jamie G. Just the uno there, just the one. We both said no, the Bills will not draft a specialist, a kicker, a punter. They did not. We both said no, the Bills will not draft a quarterback. They did not. And we both said yes, the Bills will draft a running back. And they did. And Jamie G, the final question was, will the fans boo Roger Goodell when he comes out to announce the first pick? And let me tell you, Roger Goodell tried so hard to avoid getting booed. He brought Eminem out with him in Detroit. And he had Eminem do everything he could to get that crowd in the most pliable mood possible, and they still booed Roger Goodell. We both got that right. Unfortunately, that means you have 8 points, I have 8 points. It's a tie.
I guess we
Not
got to do
bad.
some tiebreakers. Not bad, but I think next year, let's do a couple tiebreakers on this.
Or at least a jawbreaker, because I would like to rewatch that, because Rose McGowan looked very good in that one, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you
It's
did.
not really what we're talking about, is it? What we are supposed to be talking about is our draft discussion. Jamie G, we've alluded to it. The Bills traded down to the first pick in the 2nd round. They had an entire day almost to listen to offers from other teams. I thought maybe there was a chance they did that to try to, facilitate a trade for someone like Brandon Ayuk. That did not happen. With the first pick in the 2nd round, the Bills took Keon Coleman, wide receiver from Florida State, a guy that had been projected as a late 1st round pick, even after running a bad 40 time in some places. And apparently, maybe the pick of Josh Allen, right? Apparently, there's maybe a little texting going on, and maybe it's a little bit of a vibe thing, too, right? His first press conference was kind of wild, but it was almost the polar opposite from Stephon Diggs. And maybe that mattered just a little bit, right? Like, they took the locker room into account. I know the physical talent is there, but it seems like a guy who's going to bring a little bit of fun and energy and life into that locker room, and I think they kind of needed that, right? So thoughts on Keon Coleman here, first pick for the Bills in the draft.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. He was asked, before the draft, because he specifically said he wanted to go to Buffalo and play with number 17. And he said, on top of being a great teammate, a dog, all those things, have a great relationship with Josh Allen. And I think that matters. And we saw what happened with Stephon Diggs. They had a great relationship in the COVID year, not quite as good the next year, pretty bad the following year, and obviously not good the final year of the 4-year deal. So I'm really excited about Keon Coleman here. Look, they had their choice between him and a couple others. I think they got him at a value in which they liked, and I think this is a huge upside type potential with this guy. Size, hands, he had 1 drop all season. He played through some nagging injuries, missed 1 game, was pretty dominant at Florida State. Could really count on him, kind of go up and get it, 50-50 ball type stud. And honestly, I'm really excited. I didn't notice anything slow about him on the film I watched. Nothing. I'm really excited about this pick, Mills, and I think it's again, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott value character and how much you care about football. I think this guy fits the bill, and I'm, pun intended there, I'm excited about Keon Coleman. He's going to have a real opportunity here, but he's coming into a unique situation where he doesn't have to have the pressure of a Marvin Harrison Jr. or some of these other guys. He's going to be in an offense that's already very good. I know it's going to look a little bit different, but there's already big superstars within that offense with Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Josh Allen. Curtis Samuel's a guy that I'm really excited to see. He's never played with a offense like this or a quarterback like Josh Allen. Keon Coleman's just got to be a guy in there, but I think he's going to emerge as a fan favorite.
And I think that is a little key because as much as, the fan base loved Diggs and everything, they haven't really connected with a guy in a long time since probably Stevie Johnson, maybe, as far as the wide receiver that they really kind of connected with. Maybe even Moulds before that, say what you will about maybe Lee Evans, right? It feels like, for better or worse, you need to be a certain personality type to thrive playing in Buffalo, be it just the fact that it's not a major media city. It has certain weather things. I love Western New York. I'm not saying that in a detrimental way. I'm just saying maybe it's not for everybody. If you want to go to South Beach every day, it's probably not going to be exactly what you're looking for, but the people who embrace it, I think, really get the most out of it, as we've seen Josh Allen do. And it seems to me like Keon Coleman immediately seems like he might be a guy that kind of gets it, right? At least he knows what the assignment is. He's ready to do the work. In bonus, even though he went to Florida State, it's kind of warm down there and all that, he is apparently a regular at Waffle House. And if you've ever gone to Waffle House, you would know they keep it about 40, 45 degrees in there or so. So I don't think he'll really have a problem with the winter temperatures in Western New York. He's got this.
I think he'll be just fine. He also played at Michigan State. He'll be just fine.
He will. And with the 28th pick in the second round, the Bills took safety Cole Bishop out of Utah. This is probably, I would say, the pick that has been met with the most universal acclaim. If you look across the various draftniks, draft reviewers, websites, what have you, everyone is just pretty solid. Like, this was a very good safety, very active, should fit very well with the Sean McDermott scheme. So, maybe if you want to say it's slightly a reach, maybe you would have loved to have a better pass rusher here or a second wide receiver, done things in a different order. I don't think you can really complain, because my guess is even if he doesn't start opening day, he is going to play a lot of snaps for the Bills this year.
I think so too. And, I was on the fence about this one because I think they could have went a different way with it. But the more I read about this guy, there is a long history of outstanding safety play in Buffalo, specifically under Sean McDermott's tenure. And I just got to believe that this is handpicked. I heard the conversation with Sean McDermott when he called him, and he said, hey, he told him just that. And he said, we're going to get you in and we're going to take care of you, buddy, and you're going to become your best. And I really believe him. I think this is going to be a coaching dream. I think the guy has, I think he has John Lynch-like potential, according to some scouts. Does everything really well, 100% all football all the time. Going to be great in the community, great in the locker room. And I think he's going to push for reps outside of being a phenomenal special teamer. I think he's going to push Mike Edwards and Taylor Rapp for reps. And last year we saw the Bills, I know with Poyer and Hyde, some of the injuries and the age and stuff, they rotated in a third safety. I think they want to be able to do that. And I think that they're going to be able to do that with Cole Bishop and get him on the field. And he can play down in the box. He can play, back on the back end. The guy's really versatile. I'm excited to see this young man enter this defense.
And I'd be really excited to hear you say fight Tyler Rapp for reps 5 times fast. That does sound like a little bit of a mouthful. But you have to like this guy, 6'2", 206. He's got some size, but he has the speed to cover, run with tight ends. And he had 3 sacks last year. So that at least speaks well to him maybe being even a bit of a situational guy in the nickel package initially, where maybe he can drop back, play center field. He can cover a guy, he can rush off the edge. Gives you a lot of versatility, and I think that helps, especially as the Bills try to build out some new depth on that defense after move on for some veterans. So I think he's a very, nice piece to play there. And you can argue that, maybe that's a better pick than, say, if you had to move up to get Cooper DeJean, who checks a lot of those same boxes. Maybe Bishop doesn't have the return ability, but other than that, they strike me as a little bit of similar players, in that they can both be very versatile in terms of what you want to do in your secondary in a modern day and age, where you got to be able to cover everybody. If you can't cover, it's rough.
Well, and the other thing too is, let's not forget, Dalton Kincaid was in Brandon Beane and Coach McDermott's ear all offseason about Cole Bishop. Why? because Cole Bishop had to guard him every day in practice. This guy's very good at guarding the tight end, doesn't shy away from it. I can't wait to see him line up against some of the league's best tight ends we'll have to face, not just in our division, but in our conference. And the real test will be when we play the Chiefs. And we'll see if that's a chess piece that they can use to try to help slow down Travis Kelce. So I'm really excited about this pick. I think it makes a lot of sense. And again, scheme-wise, trusting the coaches. Look what, Micah Hyde was a good player before he came to Buffalo, but not the player he became. Jordan Poyer was a forgotten player in Cleveland until he came to Buffalo. Excited to see what Coach McDermott does with this handpicked safety.
I am too. You can get all pro safeties in the late second round. That is definitely a thing. And we talked about the Bills making a couple of trades down to rebalance their draft capital. So they managed to sneak back into the third round. They had the 32nd pick. They took Dwayne Carter, defensive tackle out of Duke. And we kind of knew, right, they had to come out at least of day 2 with one defensive lineman. And here they didn't necessarily get an edge rusher, but it does seem like Carter is more of a pass rusher than a run stuffer. I mean, maybe, eventually he could be a well-balanced defensive tackle. He's 6'2", 302. So maybe a touch undersized by this day and age, but not a small dude by any means. He comes from a little bit of a smaller program, but I really think this was an excellent pick. Very excited about this one.
I love this pick, Mills, because the guy plays with his hair on fire. He is an absolute effort guy. He reminds me a little bit of Kyle Williams in terms of stature and his ability to get quick release. Now, obviously, Kyle Williams, 5th-round pick, became one of the best Bills defensive tackles in history. So let's slow down, Jamie G. I get it. But I think this is the perfect rotational piece to create the same or similar type pressure with a penetrating 3 technique that you're going to get out of Ed Oliver. And, they've got Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones on that first wave of defensive line. In comes the second wave. Now you've got Dwayne Carter being able to hopefully do some of the same things. High intensity, high motor guy, quick first step, good pass rusher on the interior, bringing pressure from the 3 technique position. And then they signed a veteran, Austin Davis, Austin Jefferson. They signed another veteran D tackle. The name escapes me right now, to help fill in, Daquan Jones's role. So now you got kind of that 2 defensive tackle waves coming in with essentially 2 starting lines. So Dwayne Carter, make no mistake about it, I think he's gonna be a fan favorite. You gotta love when Brandon Beane calls him. He says, "Man, what took you so long?" Confident, plays with his hair on fire, high intensity guy, big character guy, gonna be a locker room guy. I think he's gonna be a fan favorite. Loved his initial interview to the media. Cannot wait to see him get on the field. But he's going to, make no mistake, he's going to be part of a regular rotation here with that defensive front.
Yeah, I'd expect him to probably start again as the understudy to Ed Oliver, but definitely work himself into the point where maybe he is that kind of first, interior defensive lineman off the bench in the waves or the rotations or what have you. Then in the 4th round, the 28th pick, this is a little bit of a surprise to me only because I might have gone another way here. I took Ray Davis, running back out of Kentucky, once played for my Temple Owls. Fine. I mean, he's a good big back complement to James Cook. Nothing wrong with it. I just think I might have waited until, you had 3 picks in the 5th round. I might have just waited a touch there, maybe taken a chance on another wide receiver like Dantes Walker, who went just a few picks after this, something like that, as opposed to going with the running back here. Feels like a bit of a luxury pick, but if he works out to be the long-term, hammer, the thunder to James Cook's lightning, it's probably worth it. Thoughts on Ray Davis?
It was a little bit of a surprise. I think they just had such a high grade on this guy. I think he was one of their top-rated running backs in the class, and to have him there in the 4th, I think they just stayed true to their board here. Mills, outside of an incredible story, from homeless to adopted to a family that loved him and cherished him to now an NFL player, unbelievable story. The character of this young man is something that I'm really excited to see, not just what he does on the field, but what he does off the field in the community. I think it's just an incredible story. What I love about him is the pop he brings running the football, but how dangerous he was and how sneaky good he was at catching the football. I think the Bills have shown, not that there's a total shift in philosophy and they still have Josh Allen, they're still going to throw the football, but last year, those last 6-8 games under Joe Brady as offensive coordinator, they ran the football to open up the pass and it worked well. They were 6-1 down the stretch. They were red hot heading into the playoffs, and I think you're going to see him find his way on the field. Obviously, Ty Johnson, James Cook are there, but this also gives them a security to maybe not have to resign Ty Johnson next year. But I also think that they used 3 running backs last year. I could see it happening again. I think this guy adds versatility in the passing and running game. I like the pick. It surprised me a little bit, but the more I think about it, I really can't. I'm not upset with this at all, Mills. I really like the pick. Again, high character guy. You want to talk about somebody who loves football? This is it.
I just wonder if you put a gun to Brandon Beane's head and said you're going to get Frank Gore Jr. as an undrafted free agent, do you still make this pick?
That maybe not.
You know what
Maybe
I'm saying?
not.
That's all I'm saying. I have no problem with the pick itself, and I think you're absolutely right. It was probably a case of where he was the highest guy on their board, so they stuck to it. It's just the allocation of resources, again, only coming out of here with the 1 wide receiver. I just, again, especially a guy like Twez Walker on the board, you know, just a boom or bust prospect there, knowing you're going to, you know, have Frank Gore Jr. in your back pocket. You know, again, that's money quarterbacking. And so I don't want to necessarily say, oh, it was a bad move or anything like that. But, you know, you do have James Cook kind of solidified there. Then we have the rest of the day 3 picks starting in the 5th round. So we're getting to the point here where these are definitely, you know, good players we're interested in, but you're not guaranteed to make the rooster at this point. I would say because the way the Bills are, I would expect most of the rookie class to make it there. But in general, once you get into the 5th round, you're not guaranteed to make the roster. The Bills' first pick was the 6th pick overall in the 5th round, a guy I very much expect to make the roster, Cedric Van Pran Granger. And Jamie G, is that not the name maybe that you would have just thought was Jean-Claude Van Damme's real name?
It really should have been. It really
Not
should have
Paul
been.
Claude Johnson or something like that.
Yeah, not Paul Claude Johnson. It should definitely been Cedric Van Pran Granger. Really smart, intelligent football player. I understand the knock. Maybe he only profiles to center. So what? The guy started 114 games for Georgia, gave up 1 sack and 1,300 plus snaps. The guy is a mauler, really good football player at a big time program, 2 national championships, one of the better offensive lines in college football. I love this pick. I love the value. Make no mistake about it. I think the best case scenario for the Bills, he pushes them to start him at center, and we move Connor McGovern back to left guard and David Edwards back to that 6-man that can come in specific packages where we go heavy in run fronts. For 5th round, I love this pick. Love this guy. Super duper intelligent. A human being, but football player as well. And it fills a need.
Yeah, I obviously can't go all the way there into a show there, but I will point out that just retired one of my favorite players going to be on the pregame Monday night NFL countdown show. Jason Kelce was a 6th round pick. And a lot of those things were said about him, that he necessarily didn't check every box, but he was a long-time starter who was a great football player, very intelligent. So, again, I can't go all the way and compare him to that, but I can say you could find starting centers in the NFL in the 5th round. Completely, 100%. And you can't, definitely at a much higher clip than almost any other position, I would say, actually. Interior offensive lineman is one of those positions you can find at this point in the draft.
And I mean, we're talking about a guy. I mean, this isn't just like, it's not like we got him out of, you know.
No, he started for Georgia. Yeah, right. You're not trying to project him out of or Air Force or something or whatever, just to throw a random or Hawaii. I don't know. Like, you only played a very specific system
here. I mean,
that played into something closer to at least a little bit of a pro level system.
Yeah, and had a ton of success doing it. And think about how many great running backs come out of Georgia the last couple of years. You know, I mean, this is a guy that's been. There's
a reason they have a lot of Waffle Houses, and the devil likes to vacation there. So
100%. We went on down. Big fan of that pick in the 5th round.
What I'm not a huge fan of is having to pronounce the Bills pick at 525. Linebacker out of Washington, I'm going to go with Edifon Ofioshio. That's about as good as I can do. I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. That is a lot of vowels. Jamie G, any thoughts here? I know that he could definitely be a special teams contributor. Is that kind of just what you're hoping, and maybe he develops a little bit, or any other, upside here you see?
Yeah, definitely come in an immediate impact on special teams. Another guy that plays with his hair on fire, high intensity football player, big time, competitor. I think that they would love, they lost Tyrell Dotson, who secured a starting job in Seattle, and good for him. Really behind the starting two, it's a little bit of unknowns with, Balin Spector, who's been injured but looked well when he's played, and then Dorian Williams, who, kind of had some ups and downs as a rookie. I think they would love to add another player in there that they can develop at linebacker. I think for the value here, this is a guy that had success. Another great story. Born in Nigeria, played in Alaska, ended up getting a scholarship and playing in this, in the lower states, and ended up getting into Washington. Again, love the way he plays the game. It just these are players who just all football all day.
And if you're going to have a type, I think that's a good type to have.
It is.
With the 33rd pick in the 5th round, the Bills took an edge rusher out of Troy, Javon Solomon. We've been waiting. It's technically the only edge they took in the draft. Thoughts here? What I've read is, somewhat of a developmental prospect a little bit, but certainly some real upside.
Huge upside here. Smaller school and a little bit of a smaller size, but I really like kind of that bend around the corner. He's a different type. They needed this type of pass rusher. They got big, tall, lengthy edge rushers and Rousseau and Epinesa. They needed this kind of bend, smaller, in terms of height, get around the corner type guy. I mean, make no mistake about it, led college football with sacks. I think he had 16 in 2023. The guy gets after the quarterback. Really excited to see a little bit of a diamond in the rough here, to see how he handles kind of the system, what type of impact he can make. But I think for where they drafted him, huge upside here.
Yeah, getting a guy who had 16 sacks last year here in the 5th round, and you definitely needed to come out with some depth along that defensive line. So, getting him in Carter gives me some confidence that you've gone ahead and done that. I think that's a pretty impressive for a draft that wasn't necessarily super deep on the edge or on the defensive line in general. Getting a guy like that here in the 5th round, again, those smaller school guys, that builds in some of the upside, because it's a great unknown. How will they play against greater competition? But if they play well, that's where that, that edge you can buy in at is. Also needed to add some depth at the offensive line. With the 28th pick in the 6th round, you took Tyler Gable, offensive tackle out of UCF. Jamie G, Grable it up for me here, man. Again, just depth. I mean, at this point, you're kind of taking shots a little bit.
Yeah, you're taking a little bit of shots. Depth, prototypical size, good speed, good bend. You can never have too many good offensive tackles. I just think that this is a good spot. I think they had him rated a lot higher than this. He managed to be there. Fits kind of what they want. They've got an outstanding offensive line coach in Aaron Cromer. He definitely had influence in the offensive tackles and players that they took on the line. I think they really like the size and the athleticism of this player.
Yeah, and he can, from what I understand, kick inside, play right tackle, and he's actually been trying to be prepared to play center if it comes to it. So again, I think they're trying to give themselves optionality on the offensive line, and that's about all you can ask with a depth pick in the 6th round. And they kind of added to that with the 43rd pick in the 6th round. They took Daquan Hardy, cornerback out of Penn State, but realistically, he is probably ticketed to be a heavy contributor in the return game. It isn't a little ironic that you're going to place Deontay Hardy with Daquan Hardy?
It really is. But I will say I like the, again, nice pedigree here coming from Penn State. This reminds me, I'm hoping it could be another Christian Benford situation where you take somebody in the 6th and they turn into a starter. But more importantly, I think he's got an opportunity to replace Saran Neal in that depth, that nickel spot, and on special teams. He can play now. This guy can play, but I think being able to back up Taron Johnson and Taron Johnson and be able to, kind of be some depth at nickel and then play special teams. I mean, we lost Saran Neal, so this is important for us. So I like this pick as well. Again, nice pedigree, great school, good defense, well coached. He's got talent.
You might say that Brandon Beane has a type, but you know what? I'm kind of into it. But he went outside of his comfort zone for the final pick, the first pick in the 7th round. He also took Travis Clayton out of merry old England. He's listed as an offensive guard, but this is just a giant man who has not played a lot of football. But at, let me see that, 307 pounds, he ran a 4.79. And Jamie G, that is pretty goddamn impressive as somebody who's seen a Jordan Mailata make good here. Why not, right? With this kind of pick in the 7th round, it's a developmental thing. Maybe nothing ever happens. Maybe he's just a raw talent, but man.
I love this pick.
Rugby dudes are tough too. Don't sell it short. Even if they didn't play a lot of football, if there's any sport that translates well to NFL football, it's rugby.
Yes.
Dudes are crazy.
And I'll tell you one thing, watching the workout, it's like, dude, I don't even know if this guy can read a playbook. I draft him, especially in the 7th, just based on his workout. His footwork, his change of direction, his speed, his athleticism for his size was off the charts. You never know. I think Jason Peters was the 7th round pick for the Bills as a tight end that they converted.
Actually, I think.
Undrafted as a tight end that they converted. I love this. Why not take a shot? The one thing I worry about the Bills is the last couple of years, a lot of their practice squad players have been picked off and either gone to the Giants, or last year two players went to the Texans off their practice squad. So I'm hoping they can keep some of these guys. But they knew they were going to have to
you
get
cleared
depth.
that roster space now. That was part of the bloodletting. You do actually have more room for these developmental prospects, which is why I think they surprised us a little bit and wound up making 10 picks instead of the 7 or 8 we thought they were going to make.
Exactly. And I think they needed some fresh talent and youth on this roster and be able to start developing guys. And this is part of the evolution of a good team. You're picking 28th. You're paying players. This is the time where coaches have to earn their money, win their Super Bowl, and develop these guys.
Yeah, and you got a couple of bad injury breaks, especially with Von Miller and Trey White. That just hurt. Having those two guys happen when it occupied that kind of cap room, and then even just going with Kincaid when you had Knox, it's just a few things that have added up to you're going to be a little bit of a speed bump this year. But, I think overall they've done a good job with this class. But before we give it a grade, we have to go back, look at our little mock draft. We both mocked the first 2 picks only. And Jamie G, the one thing I can say for us, even if we weren't correct, we liked good players. I had the Bills getting Chop Robinson at the 28th pick in the 1st round. He actually went 21 to Miami. The Bills wound up taking Kevin Coleman, first pick in the 2nd round. And then in round 2 at 28, I had the Bills taking Ricky Parasol, the wide receiver out of Florida. He actually went 31st overall to the San Francisco 49ers. Shell took Cole Bishop. Jamie G, you had the Bills taking Xavier Legette, and you could have had him. You were there at the 32nd pick. You traded back so Carolina could get him. Again, we took Keon Coleman there. And then you had Chris Jenkins going to the Bills, 28th pick in the 2nd round, 60th overall. He actually went at the 17th pick in the 2nd round, 49th overall, to the hated Cincinnati Bengals. Actual pick was Cole Bishop. So maybe we were a little bit overly optimistic, but I actually kind of think like we just picked good dudes.
We picked great dudes, and I didn't expect the run on D tackle in the 2nd there. You saw Devondre Sweat, Chris Jenkins, a bunch of these guys get off the board
bumped
early.
Up there, I think, made the run start. That's kind of what happens with runs. Everyone's waiting, but as soon as somebody breaks the dam, that's how the run begins, unfortunately.
I think they may have gone there, Mills, if some of those guys were available. But I like what we did. Our mock one was great. Probably going to lean on the actual one. I'd like it a little bit better.
All right, I like that. Well, anyways, that kind of brings us to our draft grades, and we're going to do this on a A+ to F- scale, your typical grading school stuff. Before we give our grades, let me just give a few others that I've gotten off the various internet whatnot. CBS Sports gave the Bills draft a B. ESPN gave it a B. The Ringer gave it a C, mostly because they were not a fan of the Keon Coleman pick. Pro Football Focus gave it a B-. Sports Illustrated, C-. Fox Sports, B-. Jamie G, I am more in line with the initial grades. I am going to give it a solid B. And I think that's not just because I like B is, B's. You can't grade a draft right now. It's stupid to do so. You have no idea what these players will turn into. What I like is how the Bills use their draft capital. They moved around, they balanced themselves out, they picked up a couple of picks next year, and they did their best to fill needs while not overly reaching to do so. I think that's just a solidly executed draft. I think that qualifies for a B, and then hopefully, we're still all here in 3 years from now, we can look back, give it a real grade. But for now, just based on what they did conceptually, I like it. It's not a perfect home run. Nothing bad about it, though. I think it's an absolute rock hard B. Jamie G, grade the Bills draft.
I'm going to agree with you 100%. It is a hard B. There's no B minus here. This is a solid B. And for a lot of the same reasons. But I'll tell you what, if they come out of this draft with, two starters and Keon Coleman and the center, Cedric Van Granger, and then 3 players that contribute to offense and defense in Cole Bishop, Dwayne Carter, and Ray Davis, and then get 1 or 2 special teamers, and this moves up to an A. And then heaven forbid, if a Javon Solomon or a Travis Clayton or a Daquan Hardy hit, this could be an A+ by October. So love what they did in terms of they had to be strategic in this draft. They had to get back in the 3rd round. They had to get as much value as they could, accumulate talent. These guys got to pan out. They've only done half the job, but I really like what they did here, and I like even more how they set themselves up for next year. This is what good teams do. I mean, the Patriots famously traded out of the 1st round for how many years in a row, Mills? 5, 6? I mean, it was a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. Next year, they're going to be out from under the Diggs situation. There's a chance Von Miller's contract is up. Like, they're set up to really be able to do whatever they want next year. And so I love what they did here. They restocked the shelves. And again, if they got 3 starters out of this, and another 2-3 guys that contribute, dude, what more can you ask for?
And you held on to that extra 2nd round pick for the Vikings.
Yeah.
And you still have the Josh Allen contract extension. So say somehow you could trade for an Ayuk or someone mid-season, you can create enough room because you haven't done that extension yet. So you do at least have now a little bit of extra draft capital and the ability to create a little bit more cap room if you need to. Look at Kansas City. They found a way now to balance it. They're paying Mahomes. They're making Travis Kelce the highest paid tight end. They found a way to re-sign Chris Jones. This is what good franchises do. The Bills are now doing it. That's what you got to do.
Absolutely, Mills. And this was a lot of fun to break this down. Don't you worry, Bills Mafia. We'll be following along all the way through OTAs, preseason, and of course the season will be here before you know it. Thank you for checking out Mafia Minute. I'm super pumped. This draft has got me fired up, ready to go. I cannot wait for OTAs, training camp to get here. Let's go, man. Go Bills.
Yeah,
super
we'll be back here for all that, and definitely, if nothing else, this is how the NFL works. I'm sure the schedule drops in 2-3 weeks or something like that. So bare minimum, we'll be right back here for that. That's how the NFL does it. They don't let you breathe for more than 2 weeks without inhaling NFL football, and we're not asking that you just inhale the Mafia Minute. Just take a little whiff. We think it's good. We think you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much for checking us out. Mafia Minute is presented by Season Gap Fantasy Football. You can find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Season Gap FF and on the web at MafiaMinute.com. Nice and easy to remember, just like those flaps. Follow, like, and please subscribe. Simple. Easy. It's just like being a Bills fan. It should be second nature to you. I'm Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G, and he's very excited about the Buffalo Bills.
Hey, go Bills.